Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us at the 15th Annual Sound Healing Conference. I'm delighted to be a part of it this year, and you are with me now here in Los Angeles at the Crystal Cadence Sound Healing Studio and Temple of Alchemy. So now I'd like to introduce you to my Crystalline friends, this beautiful orchestra that's going to play a meditation for you today. It's an advanced chakra set, so take a listen first as we go up the scale. So unusual as this. And then we ground the set with this beautiful Saint Germain supergrade. And then super grounding sound at the low C phenakite with androgynous indium. So you will hear in the sound bath experience, you will hear two different beat frequencies. So take a listen. Simply noticing how does this, what I love to call shimmering sounds, how do you feel when you hear this, when you feel this? So this is one of them at the F note, the note of the heart, and take a listen to this one. And as you breathe deeply in your body, just feel how these shimmering sounds or beat frequencies make you feel, what they awaken in you, how the energy is moving through your body.
Hi there. Welcome to another presentation of the Globe Sound Healing Conference. Now we have Jeralyn Glass. Hi, Jeralyn.
Hi, David.
Welcome, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for the invitation.
Jeralyn is an internationally acclaimed singer, musician, and teacher in the field of sound healing, and has been sharing the gift of music medicine with the world for decades. She began her career on Broadway and has sung on opera and concert stages around the globe. She offers a unique alchemical blend of music, meditation, and high vibrational sound, merging quantum science, bioenergetics, and crystalline sound vibration. She helps people facilitate healing and transformation with the power of music and sacred frequencies that nourish our body, connect us with our hearts, and awaken our consciousness. She created the Sacred Science of Sound educational platform and the Crystal Cadence Sound Healing Studio, home of the Los Angeles Crystal Tones Temple of Alchemy, one of the largest displays of alchemy bowls for purchase. She personally curates her Your Singing Bowl sets, and she offers her internationally acclaimed Crystal Alchemy Singing Bowl trainings with over 100 hours of instruction. Jeralyn's unique music is available at crystalcadence.com on all streaming platforms, and her popular series and educational platform, The Sacred Science of Sound, features the monthly members portal and conversations, presentations, and performances offering leading edge information on vibrational medicine, bioenergetics, and the healing power of music. She's also has an app coming out called Source, which releases this December. And you can find out more at Jeralyn at crystalcadence.com and www.jeralynglass.com. What have you been up to lately?
Well, just now, I just got back from being the first time in Europe for, I think, 4 years. I was in on a retreat, as a sacred retreat in the footsteps of Mary Magdalene with Dr. Sue Martyr.
Oh,
So we
nice.
were integrating sound and really working with the energies of the divine feminine, which is so needed now.
Excellent. Okay, so I got the big question. If you had all the money in the world, what would you do to help people on the planet?
David, I think it's not different than what my intention is now is to share music with as many people as possible because I feel so strongly after having a life in music that music is truly a medicine and it's a balm that soothes our souls and nourishes us like I think nothing else can. So that's partly the reason for the app that we've been working on for a couple of years is to get those that information and those experiences to as many people as we can.
Cool.
Yeah.
So, so tell us about your background and how you got into this.
Mm. So I knew from the time I was a little girl, I have a distinct memory of being 3, 4 years old and singing outside, twirling around on our family's front driveway, and just hearing a voice, hearing what I would later call God, that just said, "This will be your life's path." Music, like there was something about the sound of my own voice and movement that brought so much freedom and yeah, and that's how my life has gone. And I began as a young professional on Broadway, and then my musical career moved into classical music. So I spent 20 years living abroad in Europe and learning to speak different languages and singing in different languages. And music's been, it's that thing that really is the language of humanity, touches touches us all.
Was there a time when it shifted from just doing classical music to being more spiritual?
I think that's a great question, David. I think music always was spiritual for me because I remember as a young person being in My Fair Lady on Broadway and just always having a ritual of prayer and meditation before every performance and really understanding that my human body was a vessel and I would pray and ask God to come through me, to be light, to be love, and to let that be amplified. And same when I moved over to Europe and started doing all kinds of things, Mozart, Puccini, Strauss, Beethoven. It was the same thing. And I think as a classical singer, because you aren't amplified, there's a whole nother feeling in your body of what it means to be an instrument of sound, an instrument of vibration. So I think music has always been something very deeply spiritual for me.
Did it change when you started singing with the crystal bowls?
Yeah, for sure. So I discovered the crystal bowls 17 years ago, and I fell in love with them. I just felt that they were sounds that I knew really well, but at the same time I had never heard those instruments before. And so I purchased a set of seven, one for each of the chakras in the body, and then I brought them back to Germany where I was living, and I started to share them with my students. I'm a professor of singing. I started to share them with my students, and at that time I had created a children's foundation in Germany, and the idea was that we would create original productions for the young people. They were aged 8 to 22. And then the money we raised from that, which was $35,000 plus a year, went to support a music therapy program that we created. And so the children in Germany got, for €1, they got to have music therapy. And it was helping many, many children who had lost parents or lost a sibling, or there was illness in the family. So I started to use them with those kids too. And what I discovered was when a young person had a blockage in their voice, and I would ask them to take a singing bowl and tone with it or sing with it, the blockage would dissipate. So that was kind of my first experience of, okay, the bowls really, I didn't understand at that point that your voice was in training with the sound of the bowl, and that was helping to move through any sort of blockages. But I watched so many miracles happen with young people, whether it was not being able to use their range fully, and suddenly when they would sing with the crystal bowl, their voice would open up. They would discover perhaps past traumas and be able to release and work through those. A most stunning example was with my son, who, when I brought the bowls home, he was 7, and he was part of the Kids Foundation too. And many of the children entered a music competition in Germany called Jugendmusiziert, which means making music in the youth. And he was in the area of musical theater, and he had a 15-minute program. And 1 week before the semifinals, he made it to the semifinals, he goes, Mom, my voice. And his voice had started to shift. And I don't know how that was for you when you were young, but I had not at that time worked with any young person going through their voice change. So I spoke with colleagues, professors of singing that were male, and they said, no, you can do it if you do certain things. And so we worked to, keep his jaw really relaxed. We worked a lot in the yawn position, and then we worked with the bowls. And it was amazing how, my son's name is Dylan, and it was amazing how his voice stayed completely open. We had to lower some of his keys as his voice was shifting, but the bowls helped him to stay in his center. And when he went to do his performance, he said, my name is Dylan, and since 1 week, I'm no longer a soprano. And everybody started laughing. Like, I was blown away that he could have humor at a time in his life that he was very, very vulnerable. So it's a whole different thing. It became a whole different thing to entrain your voice with the bowls. Something else began to happen for everyone, for myself and for everyone that I was working with them.
Yeah, we've got got $100,000 grant and created 2,500 exercises for the kids, all based on sound and vibration and geometry, sacred geometry as well. And we had a whole set of alchemies and frosted bowls for the kids, and it was really cool. They really loved them. The main thing, the way I think of it, is a stable, consistent vibration is the definition of peace. Right. And so
Beautiful.
getting them to a stable, peaceful vibration, and especially the slow fade. I mean, I've got a video where I've got a whole room of 3 to 6-year-olds, and I play an alchemy bowl and I say, raise your hand when the bowl goes to complete silence. And all like 30 of them are just, they don't move. You ever see a room of 3 to 6-year-olds not moving for like 5 minutes? And they're like, it was incredible. And then afterwards I say, can you still hear the sound even though it's gone? And they're, oh yeah, it's like, it's really peaceful, huh? And they're like, whoa. Yeah.
I mean, this is so beautiful what you are doing in Northern California, and it's what you asked me the first question, like, what would you do? What would I do if I had all the money in the world and money was not an issue? How would we share music? I mean, for sure with children, and as you found, I found too that children, they love that there's this pristine quality of vibration as you described, and then it leads them into a place of inner silence, and it's in that inner stillness, I think, that so much happens. There's so much that happens for us when you find and you're comfortable to sit in that place of stillness, which most young people today are, it's 15 seconds and then they're off to something else, right?
Right.
So
And it's what teachers pray for.
yeah.
Right?
Right.
Right? It's like, 'cause it can be a little crazy these days.
Yeah, I think, and what you just said too, that silence is such a big part of music, and I learned especially in the field of classical music, that when I was doing just great pieces of music, Beethoven or whatever it was, that it was the rests that created the music. It was the pauses in the music that created the shape of the music that allowed, this to happen, this grand awe and this grand wonder.
There's
Yeah.
nothing like a slow fade as well. And the longer the better. And
Yeah.
especially the bassier the better. And it's just so precious. We've got a 42-inch bowl at our place. It's like a hot tub, right? And it's
Wow.
so powerful. And when it fades out, no one moves.
Yeah.
No one moves.
I think with all the noise in our world, I think it's becoming more and more important to find our own inner voice, and that is birthed out of that place of stillness. And I think that's something that, as human beings, we really actually don't want to go there. Um, there's so many things to distract us, but when we find that place of stillness, and that's what happened when I was working with my son with the bowls. We had this little citrine bowl that happened to be a G note, and G, as you know, is the note of the throat chakra. Now, at that point in time, I didn't really put all that together, but there was something about when he played that bowl, he loved it. And citrine, of course, has to do with personal power and your self-esteem, your courage, and your confidence. He would do what you were describing. I would have him tone with the bowl, release his jaw, and just make sounds that he was comfortable with as his voice was shifting, and then the silence. And the silence reflects back to us, I think, so much purity and inner joy, and in essence, love.
Well, it opens up portals to other dimensions as well. I think that's what's interesting about adolescents. They're uh, especially interested in excitement and interesting and different and new and such. I mean, it's the basis of adolescence. And when they learn that silence is the coolest, most interesting area ever because a whole other world opens up. As Bev in Mount Shasta used to say, you just got to be still enough to hear it.
Yes. Ah, that's beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know what you just said? I never had the pleasure to meet Bev. I've heard so much about
Mm.
her, but I never had the pleasure to meet her. Um, you just have to be still enough to hear it. And that's also, it's finding that way, which I found more and more in my life now when you asked about the spiritual quality of music and the bowls, is we ground. We have to find that place of rootedness and that place of embodiment in order for that to happen, what you're describing. And that's also a thing that I think for many young people, they don't want to be in their bodies. There's so
Yeah.
many things that are interesting outside of our bodies, right? But until we find that place where we learn how to ground, where we learn how to really breathe in this deep and connected way, we can't experience the highlights that you've described. We can't experience those other dimensions as profoundly as when we understand what it means to ground and embody.
Well, we've got a whole room full of alchemy bowls as well that we sell up here.
Mhm.
So I got an interesting question. So if someone comes in, how do you help them choose which bowl to get?
And I know that I've not really explored that with you yet, but I know that you help people to find their particular notes. And
No, yeah, that's one thing I do. Definitely, I can share that in a bit.
yeah, and I just know as a singer, so like for example, if I'm working with musicians, there are particular keys that they like. There's particular notes that they like to sing around. So that's one particular thing. But I'll take a step backwards and say this whole world for me. This is my son. This is Dylan, and this whole world for me. You're laughing. Happened when he passed away.
Oh, he
So
passed away.
yeah, eight
Oh my
years
God, the one you've been talking about the whole time here
ago. Yeah,
passed away? Oh, how long
yeah.
ago?
It was 8 years ago, and
Oh
that's what,
wow. Oh my God.
because he had such a strong connection to the bowls, and he was a musician. He was a great singer. Played the guitar, played the piano. That was our language. That was the language we spoke. We would sing together. We would share music together. And after he died, on the night he died, I walked down to the ocean with a dear friend that had known him in Germany from the time he was a little boy, and we both looked up in the sky and saw this massive shooting star that just, and it seemed to fall down in the mountains behind LA. And I heard it, and Peter, my friend, heard it too. And I could hear Dylan's voice saying, Mom, it's like we always talked about. I'm home, I'm with God.
Well,
And because I used to bring him to bed with the bowls, and he'd say, Mommy, play me my sound blanket. So he knew those bowls, and because of what happened with his voice change, he knew them really well. And that's sort of this whole, when I look back on my life and think, okay, I found them 17 years ago. He was a young boy, and how they've then, and he's guided me, David, to do what I'm doing. I mean, I couldn't have imagined this life in a million years. I was a whole different kind of musician, right? And then suddenly it was like, Mom, we're going to do sound healing. And it's like, no, no, I don't think so. I'm grieving you. Like, no. And that's how this path for me all started. And so I know very well that I was in 6 hours of grief therapy a week, 3 times 2 hours, trying to figure out what happened to my boy, what happened to my life. Like death is something we don't understand. You know what I'm saying? Like
especially a child.
you expect, okay, your parents are going to die, and that, we say in grief therapy that that's your past. You lose your past. And if a partner dies, you lose your present. And if someone gets ill or whatever, that's expected. But a child to go before you, we say you lose your future. And Dylan's made it very clear, Mom, you didn't lose your future. You just have a very different future. But we're connected through sound vibration. And I mean, so much has happened in the 8 years, David. And sometimes I'll say to my mom, like, Mom, really, what happened to this classical musician, this professor that is now playing the crystal bowls and talking to her son on the other side? Like, I must have lost it. And she's like, no, dear, you're helping so many people. And I mean, this world much longer than I do, but it's the fact that when I started to really process my grief outside of the talk therapy, which, it was kind of a band-aid, but and people at that time, 3 doctors said to me, we should put you on antidepressants. And I was like, no, because I knew instinctively that if I went on antidepressants, I would never feel the grief and I'd never be able to really process it. It would just be a temporary solution. So I started playing the bowls. And the first bowl that really, really opened everything was selenite. And selenite being grounded white light, and it was actually a G sharp. So if we talk about, okay, the throat chakra, or between the throat and the third eye, and the zeal point, the G sharp could be the zeal point chakra, which is the mail slot to God, however you want to name that. But it's a very important area in the body. I don't know how you feel about that, but that was the note that I used with selenite, and it just opened this whole world. And I started to cry and keen and groan and make sounds that I had never made in the talk therapy. And I could feel his presence. I could feel a misty white presence in the room, guiding me how to use the bowl and train with it, as we talked about before, and let myself feel what I thought I can't feel. Grief it's too big. I can't feel it. But the bowl enabled me to do that. And that was something that was so pivotal in my life. I remember after 50 minutes of playing and screaming and just, bah, I got up to wash my face and I looked and there was light in my eyes. And it was the first time I had really seen light in my eyes since he died.
Wow.
So it was like, okay, Jeralyn, there's something happening here and he's guiding something happening here. So for me, David, this whole path was, it was not planned, and I don't know if anyone plans, but as I said, as a young girl, I knew I was going to sing and I knew music was going to be my life, but I had no idea it was going to go in this path. It's pretty crazy.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah.
So it's interesting because, there's so many different ways to look at chakras. You can do it by notes, or you could do it by frequency, where
Mm-hmm.
just a bigger bowl, or you could do it by the element or crystal or gemstone in the bowl.
Right. And when you ask me, how do I do that? So, I mean, that for me is such a sacred process and it's so individualized. Like, you can't, there's no one size fits all with the crystal bowls because each one is really a one of a kind piece of sonic art. And so I'll ask people all kinds of different questions. And then, of course, if it's a musician that they need to match the bowls to other instruments, then for the most part, they need to be tuned to 440 hertz. They need to be tuned to the piano or tuned to the orchestra. Now, if there are a musician that's using a 432 hertz tuning, then we can go with the 432 hertz bowls. But as you know, it's such a complex and rich world, and Dylan will guide me sometimes. Sometimes there's been very humorous things where I've been consulting with someone and I can hear him, Mom, go get her the Divine Cryon Bowl. And I'm like, no, no, that's in my private stash, and it's like, Mom, don't be a bowl hoarder. And it's like, son, no, not that bowl. But it's just funny how instinctively certain bowls, and for example, that was a bowl that was perfect for that particular woman. So that's the joy, David. I don't know how you guys do it in at the Globe, but it's really asking questions of, do I need to tune to other instruments? Is there a particular place in my body? Like, for example, many people will say, I want to work with my heart. Okay, great. So as that could mean an F note or possibly an F sharp note, but it could also mean a rose quartz bowl or a rhodochrosite bowl.
Yeah. What I do is I say, okay, you could do F, or you could do, uh, rose or pink or gold is what I really like.
Hmm.
But you could just play all the bowls, because I've found that when people play all the bowls, they rarely choose F for the heart.
Bingo.
Yeah. And so just feel what feels right. The number one thing I do is I say, just play them and see which one resonates with you.
Well, I think what else is interesting that I've come to understand is I think with my own grief, I began to learn that it's not that it necessarily sits in the heart where you think it does. So maybe somebody has a certain issue and it actually sits in the root chakra where you would have said, my heart is broken. I need something to help my heart. But we're such a rich and complex instrument, this human being, and that's the same with the bowls. They work on so many different levels, and our mind can't conceive necessarily. The mind doesn't necessarily know what we really need, and I
You
think
know,
that's the magic of music. When you sit in a concert hall or you put headphones on and you listen to music you love, it'll take you to sometimes very many surprising places, or suddenly it'll elicit memories or things that you have buried deeply. It's the same with the bowls, and you might say, okay, I want this for my throat chakra because I can't communicate well, but it's not one to one. And I think that's the really interesting thing, how creatively that we can work with sound to really be a medicine for people, you
nice.
know? Because it's not like a pill where you go, okay, take that pill and it's going to do exactly that. Health and healing and wholeness it's a very, there's so many subtle layers of what makes a person whole. Like what you were describing with the small kids, you know, what brings wholeness for us? What is it?
So it's interesting. There are a couple of things we do. I mean, we do find your metabolism note and you can actually get a bowl. I mean, I love my B bowl because that's my metabolism where I'm at peace and my brainwave rate. And it's also, there's interest. I have to tell you this one thing you'll appreciate. I've got two frosted 18-inch bowls that are both F and they're 7 hertz apart. So they create a binaural beat, whoa, 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 of 7 hertz, which is a B. And I didn't realize. I knew I always loved those two F bowls, and then I finally measured it and found out that the rhythm is my rhythm between the two F bowls, which is a B rhythm, which is really cool. But the other thing we do that I think you'll find really interesting is we often match it to the key of the person's voice because everybody sings when they speak. So I can easily, you probably can too. You can probably tell the key that people sing in when they speak because you're a musician, right? You can tell keys really easily. And so you can, I mean, my key is, and that's where I sing. And what I've learned is that people go to the home note of the key of their voice when they express love. Like, I really love my kitty. I love my kitty, right? And so that's really cool if you're going to be singing with the bowl to get it in your key of your voice. So you can really go to your heart note in your voice.
Agreed. I just actually I want to show you something because when you said what you love, so this is a sound that I love. So just take a listen.
Oh my God.
That's what you described, right? I mean, it's different note. Those are D notes.
And
But
that's my rhythm. That's a beat.
I could sit in that sound all day long.
You might be a B also. You probably are. You might be a B flat.
I love B flat.
Yeah. You're either a B or a B flat, I bet. You can tell by a person's body type even.
So I love to do that and then take a listen. You know, there's so many combinations. So those are just two notes. What I just played for you is D and G. That's it. And for me, I could sit in that sound all day.
Nice.
So you have that, you know, what you called the binaural beat. You know, I've since come to learn that technically it's a beat frequency because technically a binaural beat needs to be made
Right,
with
right.
headphones, etc.
Technically, it's a monaural beat, but
Yeah,
just use the term.
yeah, same. But there is something about hearing the one D in this ear. So one D is a 528 tuned D, and the other D is a 432, and then feeling like this, what I love to call the shimmering sound.
Yeah, it
And that's
synchronizes the left and right brain when you put them in the left and right ears. That's what
so
it does,
good.
besides the binaural beat, but besides the actual brainwave state it's creating.
It's so good.
Yeah, yeah.
And I always,
So,
yeah, go ahead.
so you're starting to do some work. You're doing work now medically and doing some research, you said?
So
Tell me.
I'm going to speak in Washington, D.C. in December at a big conference, Music as Medicine, which I'm very excited about. And it's sponsored by Kennedy Center and National Endowment for the Arts and NIH and the Renee Fleming Foundation. So it's the first time I'll be bringing bowls to such an event. And we also started so when my son passed away, I decided to use the money for his college that I had saved. to create some scholarships at the Minerva University that's up by you. And Minerva is one of the most innovative universities in the world, and they started an online platform for their education in 2015, so way before COVID started. And we're working with them creating a music psychology in the brain lab. And very, very excited. It just started this summer. So I'm really interested in what you asked me in the very first question. How can we bring something that's not a chemical pill to the lives of humanity that can really help them? And I've been working 8 years with cancer patients, hospice patients, and veterans and children. But especially with the cancer patients and the veterans, I've seen, profound things happen. Have they been done in scientific experiments? No. So it's anecdotal evidence, correct? But what's happened to the cancer patients has been phenomenal, David, and same with the veterans.
What type of treatments do you do for them?
We do. So for the cancer patients, it started for me just wanting to get out of my own grief, and I would lay there in my bed and just think, if I don't move, if I don't do something, I'll never get out of my bed. And so I had an inspiration to call this cancer support community. It's a national organization where they offer alternative ways of healing and processing what people are going through when they have a cancer diagnosis. And they do yoga and gong work, but they'd never done crystal bowls. And so we started a program 8 years ago that it would be in groups, and I would work with them with their voice first, opening their human instrument, and then they would lay down and receive the sound. And then there would be a lot of sharing afterwards. And David, over the years, people have said so many things like, I'm thinking of 3 different women who all 3 had mastectomies, and who all 3 said, I can't believe it, but my breast is back. I am whole again. Like, what happened? I don't feel like I'm missing any part of me again. Or a particular patient who, that was pretty wild. She jumped up after the sound bath and said, who was that man in the room? And
That's a
every,
Hathor.
every, everybody was silent. And somebody said then, that was Jeralyn. I was doing sounds like ma, just in the low range and making consonants and using my voice with the bowls. They said that was Jeralyn's voice. No, she said, there was an Indian man in the room, and he took my hand and he took me on a train, and my cancer is healed. And she was, and then a couple other people said, I saw him too. And I'm just going, okay, what happened? Right? And she was really insistent. And something happened that day in that room that I'll never forget. Um,
I have to
so,
tell you my cancer story. I was worked with this woman for a couple of years, and she had throat cancer, and she was scared to make sound. And I worked so hard and got her to where she could finally make sound and really scream, right? And she came in after a couple of years and said, Dave, I know the cancer is gone now. There's no more pain. And then it just so happened that she got a blood transfusion that she had already planned that week, and they hadn't stored the blood correctly, and she was gone within a week.
mm,
And one of my students helped her go to the other side, and and etherically, right? And because she was a psychic, and she said that because I had helped her so much, that whenever I work on cancer, she will be there to help me.
mhm.
It was funny because she was in my bedroom etherically for about 2 weeks after she died, hanging out. And I'm like, you scared to make sound now?
I mean, these are the things that, and I work closely with Dr. Daniel Levitin, who is a New York Times bestselling author. This is Your Brain on Music, and he ran the lab at McGill University. And, we'll talk about that. These are the things that science can't prove. There's so much about music that can be proven. And then there is that place that I'll always name the ineffable. It's what happened to me when I was playing that selenite bowl, and then when I was finished with the process and looked and saw joy in my eyes, it was like, Jeralyn, this is healing. Like, this is healing. Your grief is transforming. Like, And I remember, David, going to a support group for parents who had lost children. And I mean, the parents were hanging on 30, 40 years, going to the graves, talking about their child. And I just thought, I can't do it that way. I know that there's a bigger picture to all of this. I know that there's a whole bigger cosmic picture, that my son is not gone. He's just changed form.
Oh, so I've done a huge amount of grief therapy. I've led grief therapy groups for years. When I hear, I have to tell you my grief story, or one that's really good, because we basically we look at three things. One, it's okay. One, that it's to go to gratitude.
Mhm.
That's the main antidote. And then the other is to learn, especially to run universal love, which is way stronger than any love on earth, right? But I have to tell you this one story. Oh my God, you'll love this. It's a little involved, but I think you'll just love this because it's perfect for you. So when I was in college, I just started at UC Santa Cruz. I went into a class and the teacher said, "Okay, everybody pair up and tell something really deep about yourself to that other person." And the woman I got hooked up with said, "I was just at the beach just north of Santa Cruz yesterday with my best friend, and we were swimming out in the ocean, and she got carried into the rocks and was killed." And I'm like, "What the hell are you doing here?" And she goes, "It was really weird. Immediately, it felt like it was okay." And she said the paramedics came. There was a big crowd trying to resuscitate her, but she was gone. So she walked up on the hill, and there was a guy up there who had been playing guitar. And he says, "What's going on down there?" And she said, "My friend just died." And this guy played a song on the guitar that completely made it okay. So I'm like, I don't know what to tell you about myself after that, right?
Right.
And so I go home that night, and I'm telling my roommates this story. And I had this one roommate named Andrew, who's kind of a light being, really good guitar player. And he goes, "Yeah, I've never played a song like that in my life." It was my roommate that played the song for that woman. That was over 30 years ago. A few years ago, Andrew was in Kauai riding a bicycle and got hit by a car and was killed. And my first thought was, it's okay. And I told that story at his wake.
I mean, David, there is a bigger plan. There is a bigger, there's a bird's eye view. There's a bigger view of our lives, and I mean, of course, we all know we come in and we're going to go out, you know. I think that's been a very important thing that music has helped me with, to understand there is a bigger picture, and loss like that, what you've just described, doesn't mean that you suffer and weep. It it means there's just a bigger piece of understanding.
You know, even Tom Kenyon said, when there's grief, it's opening the heart. He said the when the Fukushima happened, there was a massive heart opening. Alice Bailey said World War II was the best thing that's ever happened on this planet. Your heart was blown open more than it could ever be. And that's beautiful. And you're bringing it forward.
I when I talk with him, it's like, okay, son, I get that we had a soul plan and a soul purpose, but I don't remember signing that contract. And when I see you, I'm going to have a discussion with you about that, and he laughs. But it's like, life is so, it's just so filled with so much richness, so many surprises, so much opportunity for us to embrace, and as you just said, like, to love deeper, to love in that universal consciousness of unconditional love. I mean, that's what I think grief and loss teach us. If we can open our beings enough to feel that. And music, I mean, back to what your question, I mean, music is a medicine. It does what nothing else can do for me. You know, it just, and everything I've seen with the people that I've been working with, I got to play for a number of hospice patients and play for them as they were crossing over. And like, it's incredible. You know, it's an incredible experience. And even when I had to meet my son and do that whole process, it was just like, I didn't imagine death could be beautiful. It's something that we're frightened of,
Right.
right? But because I can't believe I'm saying this. I mean, I looked at him and I knew that was him, the boy that I birthed, but his essence, his spirit was so much bigger than that physical body. And just the idea that music helps us to really feel and understand that we are eternal beings. We're made of energy, we're made of sound vibration, we're made of light, and he and I are connected forever, however, whatever that means, for an eternity.
I
And
got a
now,
question.
yeah.
I got a question for you. So, what is it you do besides playing the bowls? What is it you do energetically to get people really freaking high?
Ah, because there's just been so many experiences of people just going, I'm
Yeah,
thinking of this.
what do you do? What do you, I mean, because I can tell you what I do. I mean, I call in higher beings. I go straight to source, right? I've got little helpers here and there. And so they go bing, bing, bing to people in the
Right.
room. And then they like come through my voice and there's all types of things that happen. And it's like, and then I just go to a place of just deep love and sweetness.
I mean, I'm laughing when you say that because I worked at a place, a healing resort in Thailand, and there was this one big guy from South Africa that had come to, he was an executive for IBM and very much here. And he was just like, he had to do some healing. He stood up and he goes, "What kind of voodoo did you do?" He said, "I've never," he goes, "I wasn't sleeping, but my mind was, it was still." And I would guess, like, I mean, I understand what you say and the things that you do. I mean, for me, it's like, I don't want to name it like a performance, but every time I would get on a big stage with a big orchestra, I would make myself a vessel of light and a channel that I could feel light from above and rootedness below me. I mean, I wouldn't have named it quite like that at that time, but that's what was happening. And I could feel like when you'd have to project your voice in a 3,000 seat theater over a 100-piece orchestra, your body it's doing this. So there's a kind of presence that's demanded in that kind of really vocal athletic situation. I become present as I possibly can, and connect with pure light and pure love, whatever that means in that moment. As you know, every situation is different. There's going to be different people in the room. They're going to have different energies. So it's that I just make myself a channel of the highest light and love and presence, and then I don't question. Like at that time with the cancer patients, and I was playing the bowl and hunganga mungaha hua. These sounds were coming out, and I was like, "Oh, okay." My mind was going, "That's interesting." But whatever was happening, it activated in that woman who was that man in the room there. Took me by the hand and took me on a train, right? So I think it's presence, David. It's presence, the highest level of light and love, the highest intention of wholeness and healing for every human being, whether they're in the room with me or whether they're, you know, thousands and thousands of miles away. I know that what we do in our sessions has an effect on the whole planet. That's vibration. That's the nature. I mean, you know that well. That's the nature of what we're doing. And it's different every single time. I'm thinking of one time that I had a big 12-inch bowl, C note, root chakra, very grounded. And I was playing, it was World Sound Healing Day. And I was playing that bowl, and we were doing generational healing. And we had done the mother side, and the bowl orchestra was playing amazingly. We got to the father side, and the bowl started screeching. It just got this super high overtone, and it was like, And I'm like, Jeralyn, what are you doing? You've been playing, because your mind will kick in sometimes. Are you doing anything wrong? And I was just playing, and it was like, no. And then I got it. That energy that was coming out of the bowl was not something I could have planned, but it was cutting through a density on the father's side and the generational patterns that was profound. And then what people shared with me afterwards, it was like, okay, your job is to show up, be present, open your channel, be in the highest light and love that you can, and then you got to let go. Because David, I mean, it's beyond what happens in those sessions is beyond what we can really conceive. I feel. I don't know
But
how you feel.
yes, I don't know. It's beautiful. That's perfect. So, do you have your favorite bowl of all? Because there's different times, different ones.
Yeah, I mean, I
Uh-huh.
always tease and say, I never met a bowl I didn't like, but some bowls I like better, and it's, do you want to play in the key of B flat? Do you want to play
Right,
in the
right,
key of
right.
C? It's like, do you want to use Saint Germain? I mean, I love like the two bowls I played for you. Those are both super grades, so they're the highest quality of bowl that Crystal Tones makes, and they do something real smooth.
Hmm.
But favorite, not really.
Yeah, I want to tell you my favorite,
Okay.
and it's even gotten better. So I have this pink aura gold practitioner. It's the handle on it,
Hmm.
and I used it for all the kids. It's the one I played, and I said, raise your hand when it fades out, and also we went into the room with the babies, and they were all crying, and I stood there and I hit the bowl, and every baby goes, stops crying and looks up. And so this bowl was really precious. And then one day I leaned back and broke it. The handle broke off. So I sent it in and got it fixed. And now it's way better.
Hmm. So it's funny that you say that because I just sent in someone's bowl, that practitioner, and they just told me they're not repairing the cracks anymore with handles. That they're just,
Oh my God. Oh
so
my
you're
God. So
lucky.
it's yeah.
You're
Oh my God.
lucky.
It's really even more precious now.
Yeah. I mean, I think what's so beautiful is that every time you play them, they're responding also to you. They're responding to the field. They're responding to who's in the room. They're responding to what might be happening in the world. And I think that's the thing that we have to be so present and so open to not, we can't drive it one way. It doesn't work. Music doesn't work that way. Sound vibration doesn't work that way. It has its own thing, and we get to blend and work with it. And I think that's a really important aspect of the work we're doing.
Bev used to talk to the bowls. She said, oh, they talk to me all the time. And so, yeah, but because quartz it holds energy and electromagnetic, it is consciousness. It used to be what they used created radios from.
I gotta tell you a funny story. So there was a woman she's a psychologist, and she was using the bowls in her work, and we picked out a glorious set. And when you asked me how does it work, it was December a couple years ago, and when I saw her on the screen, she's in another state. She had a beautiful Christmas tree that was turquoise and purple, and I hear Dylan saying in my ear, go get her that sea bowl, the violet aura gold with the aqua aura gold. And I'm like, no, son, let me just go get her that bowl. I mean, it was like right from the beginning, and it was the perfect colors and it was a perfect vibe for her. I built the whole set around that, and that's the situation where he said, go get the divine cryon bowl. And I was like, no. And he was like, don't hoard bowls, mom. So I built her this beautiful set, and like a year and a half later, she called me crying, and she said, I was setting up for an event with all my clients, and the legs went out from under, and the bowls broke. She said, but the only two, there was 8 in her set, the only two that survived was the purple one and the cryon bowl. And she said they were sitting atop the rubble, just like, well, what's next? Right? And we built another set eventually, and it was completely up leveled. It was a completely I don't know how to say it to you. I mean, she was able to hold a bigger energy than she held when we did the first set. And
Right.
this set has just magnified so much for her in her life and for her clients. I just find stuff like that is so, you can't make it up. It's, and my son will laugh, and it's just like, okay, I gotta trust in this. I gotta be grounded as much as I can be stable in the structure of the science behind the sound, and then you have to be open to that place of the ineffable, that place of you don't know how it's really gonna go.
Right.
But if you
Yeah.
know, if you stay present with love and with light and the highest intention of healing, of wholeness for everybody, it's incredible.
Perfect. Perfect.
Yeah.
Anything else you'd like to share before we end?
Ah, what a world we're in, And again, back to what you asked me, like I'd say that, I lived in Germany. I worked in Germany when it was still in East and West Germany. And I lived in Berlin when Berlin was a divided city into the sectors. And I learned then truly that, again, music was the language of the human heart, and music is what connected us. And whether, I was an American and they were a Russian, or they were a German or an East German or whatever, it didn't matter. That was that language that everybody understood. And when I think now of what's happening in the world, it's deeply troubling how there can be so much hatred. And I just keep wanting to, we can feel helpless of things we can do in the bigger picture of the world, but I just feel it's so important for us to hold on to that light of sound, to hold on to that love that's inherent in sound, and to tone our human instruments, to be a part of a sacred sound and sacred sound vibration, because I don't know, David, I don't know how you think about that, but it's just, there's so many things that we can't change, but we can change how we vibrate. We can change how we vibrate. And I've seen that throughout my life, and it's getting more and more and more intense now, I think.
So how about this? How about we end by sending love to all that hatred and division with a sound? I'll let you begin.
I feel moved to play because this set is so filled with light. This is Saint Germain. This is phenakite. Phenakite is portals of light. finding that vibrational frequency of love that is pure light, pure consciousness, and allowing that love to be activated in every cell of you. Music, sound vibration is light. It is love.
Thank you.
Thank you. Peace. Peace to all. Truly.